I guess we can get started, Ralph, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm very much ready. Well, I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to be sharing with you all one of my deepest passions having to do with water on this Earth Day. We only get one planet. We want to take good care of her. And so we're going to segment the conversation specifically to water. The Earth is certainly covered in it, but how much of it can we actually drink? Not very much. And I'm really excited to be part of the hosting team here at Hydr8 to guide our conversation today. So first, I'd like to introduce one of my partners and dear friends, Mr. RJ Bianculli.
Great. Thank you, Ralph, and welcome everybody. This is a really special webinar we're doing today. It's going to be about 20 minutes. And the purpose of this is all around education and educating folks in our communities about our water. Very quick background on myself. I've been in the sustainability world for 18 years. Super passionate around health, wellness, everything sustainability. So this is very near and dear to me, and I'll share a personal story in a bit. But before I do that, I'm going to pass it over to our special guest, Don Weiner, to introduce himself.
Thank you very much, RJ. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Don Weiner. I'm a water filter guy, plain and simple. I'm with a company called Long Island Clean Water Service. We're a 43-year-old company headquartered on Long Island, but we have a 250-mile radius for our services. I am a chemist from educational point of views, and prior to working in the water filtration business, which I've been in for 10 years, I was a deputy commissioner and chief information officer for the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene.
That's excellent. And it's great to have you here, Don and RJ. Thank you very much. Just to round out the introductions, I'm Ralph Marucci. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hydr8. We have been on mission for 8 years now to take ordinary tap and transform it into the most purified, healthy source that you can drink, irrespective of what is in the pipe. We also remove the need for single use in 5-gallon jugs. And we've been doing this at a very high level for the last 8 years with almost 5,000 placements in the field here in the metro area as well. Before we dive into all of the science and nuances of water, and really, we hope to make this fairly interactive. So if you came on the call a little late, RJ says, throw in the chat where you guys are from and questions you have. And at the end, we'd love to dive into specifically those questions and, what is going on in your drinking water, how we can help as well. And again, before we jump into that, I'd like to start us off with a little bit of a story. So RJ, can you just tell us all briefly how you and Don came to know each other and how this call came to be?
Yes. So, thank you, Ralph. And being in the water business with Hydr8 now for almost to the day, two-year anniversary, has been really, really special to me. And the work that we do and what Ralph and Eric started and have built is really beyond business, really incredible. And I was always passionate about sustainability and health and wellness. And then, out of nowhere, in September of 2024, and I don't love to share so much about the story publicly, but I really felt compelled to tell everyone really what had happened to me and how Don and I came to meet. And I was diagnosed in early September with very late stage rare lymphoma called Burkitt lymphoma, which is the fastest growing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in the world. And it came absolutely out of nowhere. It was shocking to my family and to my friends. Somebody that has been healthy forever, eats healthy, is not a drinker, does not do drugs. You do quote unquote everything right, or maybe 80% right, when 90% right when it comes to your health. How the hell did I get this? And the doctors don't have an explanation. They don't understand the prevention. They don't know how I got it. And so I said, let me start exploring the basics. Like, let's take a look at what is in the water in my home. And that's when I called up Don's company. And I was so grateful after the fact that they sent Don himself to my house. And Don and I had a conversation, and I was basically floored. And this is from somebody in the water business. about what Don showed me, which is, by the way, public information that was in my water. So with that, that's a little bit of a background of how we met and how this whole webinar really came to be about, which is all about education and sharing this story. And I'm not saying this is why I got cancer. All I'm saying is after I read that report, it's a pretty good idea as to why so many people are getting cancer. So with that, Don, I'm going to let you please begin your presentation. I think everyone's excited to see this. Jump in Q&A if anybody has questions.
Thank you, RJ. Can we have the next slide, please, Joseph? So this slide is just showing everybody on this webinar some of the headlines that are in the newspapers all the time. Literally every day on Long Island newspapers, in New Jersey newspapers, in New York City newspapers, it talks about the challenges of water. So let me make it sure everybody understands water. Do not trust, underscore, do not trust your water vendor. Those are typically water companies. In Long Island, they're done by the various municipalities. In New Jersey, in Westchester, you might have companies like Suez, but do not trust that the water coming out of your tap is healthy. You need to know what's in your water before you filter it. So anybody who's going out and just buying filters, whether it's for a Brita or for a whole house via the internet, it's backwards. If you don't know what's in the water, how do you know what to filter? Next slide, please, Joseph. So without going too much detail right now, this is a water quality report from a very well-known, very affluent town in Long Island. We're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail in a few minutes, but before that, I want to explain how to read these reports. Next slide, please. So this is the header. In these reports, and all the reports are basically the same, whether you live on Long Island, in Westchester, in Rockland, in Fairfield County, even in New York City or in New Jersey, all the water vendors have to put these reports together to provide to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and make them available to the constituents. So the reports are pretty simple to read. They're column-based. First column are the contaminants that they found. All these water departments spend millions of dollars a year testing the water. They know what's in the water, they must divulge it. They also give you this column called violation. We're going to pass by that for a second. They show you when they sampled it. They show you what they've detected. I always take the highest level because I want to err on the side of caution. And then they give you the most important pieces of data that you can ever hope for the MCL and the MCLG. So let's talk about those. Next slide, please. The MCL is the maximum contaminant level. This is set by the Environmental Protection Agency, and it basically tells the water districts, if this is in the water, bring it down to this level. It's the highest level of a contaminant that's allowed in drinking water. Let's say there's a contaminant in the water called napkin, and it's an MCL of 10. As long as it's 10 or below, the water district is good. The water district is good. They have the legal right to tell you everything is fine, except the MCL has nothing to do with safety. Next slide, please. Nobody wants to focus on the MCL. For you and your home and your family, you want to focus on this, the MCLG, maximum contaminant level goal. It's the health risk limit. It's the level of a contaminant in water below there's no known or expected risk to health. That's all anybody on this call should be paying attention to. But there's a problem. The water districts operate at the MCL, and you and I operate at the MCLG. Let me just show you how, before we go into the next slide, how dangerous that is. There's a radioactive isotope called radium in the water. Radium, radioactive. The MCLG for it is 0, meaning anything more than 0 is harmful. Actually, anything more than 0 will cause cancer. But the MCL, the regulatory level, is 5. Well, as long as it's under 5, the water district is good. But anything more than 0 can cause cancer. So to see the problem? Now let's go back to that slide, please, Joseph. So here's a water quality report from 2023. It's the most current one for this town. By the way, the town is Garden City, so it's a very well-known town. And I've highlighted a number of things. Let's just pick on lead, for example. Lead is highlighted in yellow. The highest level they detected is 110, but the MCLG is 0. Anything more than 0 is a health risk level. See the problem? Now, what's interesting is the violation doesn't exist. All those other things in red are known class 1 carcinogenics. They are known to cause cancer in humans. All of them basically have a health risk level of 0, but the water districts don't print that up that way. If you look at the bottom, you can actually see the radionucleotides, alpha, beta, radium, and uranium, but the MCLGs say Na. No, that's a mistake. Whether it's purposeful or accidental, all those MCLGs are 0. Because anything more than 0 for those things will cause cancer.
Unbelievable.
Ralph.
Don, I have a couple of quick questions. And
sure, RJ.
And to the attendees, if you have a question, we're going to answer them. Put them in the Q&A. There's a little Q&A tab on the screen. I already see 2 questions, so you can keep asking questions. But here's 2 questions I have. One, why does the EPA and CDC have 2 different baselines or measurements for this? How can they allow this to happen?
That's a great question, RJ. In reality, the federal government at the EPA level wants a standard across the United States. They don't want one water district to have better quality water than another. They just want a standard. What the standard is, they just find out, it has to do with money, how expensive it is to clean certain things. There are some chemicals in the water, we're going to talk about the PFAS, they're really expensive to remove. So that's why there's typically a difference between the health risk levels and the regulatory levels. And let's not forget the federal, the Food and Drug Administration that measures bottled water problems. So you have the EPA involved, you have the CDC involved, you have the FDA involved. Prior to this administration, none of them talked. Now there's nobody left to talk. So it's going to get worse.
So my follow-up question to that is, how the hell did all this stuff get in our water, especially here on Long Island?
So that's a great question. So let's talk about a few of them. Lead. Lead impacts everybody. It's the #1 problem in New York City water. It's in everybody's water. But what's interesting is lead is not organic. It doesn't exist in water. What happens is we have chlorine in the water to control microbiologicals, like bacteria, virus, mold, cyst, and fungus. And at these levels, the chlorine is not that harmful, but it will corrode metal pipes. So chlorine actually strips ions of copper and lead out of the pipes. That's where the lead comes from. Some of this other stuff, like the radioactive stuff, they're naturally occurring. It's just directly above the bedrock, and it gets into our water system. The things in the middle here, like hexchromium and perchlorate and dichloroethylene and acetone and trichlor, those are industrial, pieces of garbage that just have seeped into the water systems. Some water districts have pharmaceuticals. It is well known that we have phenobarbital and thecobarbital on the east end of Long Island. Well, that's because people throw away their prescription medications either into the toilet or into the garbage. Eventually, it'll work its way into the water system.
Unbelievable. And so are these chemicals, I mean, this is Garden City, Long Island. I live in Dix Hills. I have my own report that was marked up in all red. What about New Jersey, New York City, parts of Westchester? Do they share the same contaminants as we do here?
Possibly. You got to look at what's going on with the data. Now, that doesn't mean you should go test, right? As a water filter guy, everybody expects me to test. But testing is really, really expensive to do it at the granularity that I need as a health professional at that MCLG level. But the water districts have done it. There's not a town in our country that doesn't have water quality reports. And for people who have private wells, because there are thousands of private wells on Long Island, all you have to do is look at the water quality reports from the water vendors around them. So you have some concept of what's really going on with that water.
So I think we've pretty much well established that there's problems in our water, whether you're from Eastern Long Island, if you're north of the city, or even in New York City, where everybody seems to believe the water is fantastic, but lead seems to be seeping into our water, especially from chlorine, as you pointed out, and other various reasons. So what do we do about it? I mean, we've got a couple of great solutions here, and I'd like to hear a little bit more from your perspective, Don, because obviously this can be a tailored solution. So can you talk to us a little bit about some of the things people are doing to filter water? I've had people tell me, "Oh, I've got a Brita filter, or I have a refrigerator that does, has a carbon filter." Can you talk about carbon filtration, which seems to be the most popular?
Sure. Carbon, it's a natural element. It has two basic processes, one called absorption and one called adsorption. And they are very, very different. When we see products like refrigerator filters and Britas and Pures, these low-end systems, even internet tanks, they have carbons in them that only absorb odors and tastes, right? If you actually look at the front of a box of a Brita, it says removes the odor and taste of chlorine. Doesn't actually take out the chlorine. It just masks that odor and taste. That's not good enough. The other process carbon works by is a process called adsorption, ADSORP. Adsorption is a molecular bond to the surface of the carbon molecule. It's additive. If it's additive to the carbon molecule, that means it's negative, being withdrawn from the water. It's being removed. But carbon filters are not enough. Carbon only works on organics. Organics are chemicals, things that are neutral in charge. Carbon's not going to take out radioactive isotopes like radium and uranium. It's not going to take out calcium or chromium or iron or even most leads. You need different kinds of products. And again, you need to start off with what is in the water and then work your way backwards.
So is there a universal solution that we can allude to? We use reverse osmosis, we use sediment filters, we use pre-carbon, we use RO, we use post-carbon, and then we add electrolytes back in.
Yep.
Not to mention an ozonation within the holding tank to take care of microbiologicals.
Yep.
Can you speak to that process at all as well?
Sure. So reverse osmosis is a process that removes the highest amount of contaminants in water and is still healthy to drink. You can drink distilled water, which is 100% H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, but it's not healthy. It's what we call dead water. There's nothing in it beneficial to our bodies.
Right.
Reverse osmosis, however, typically is an under the sink system because it's expensive. I put in commercial reverse osmosis systems for places like surgical wards. I'm doing a couple in Mount Sinai just recently. I've done a few out here. These are very, very expensive systems, approaching 6 figures. I can do almost the same amount of quality in somebody's residence or in somebody's business for a fraction of that cost using various resins and various carbons. So
Right.
you have to start off with what's in the water and what am I trying to remove? And then you work your way backwards with each contaminant that you're trying to remove.
And one last question when it comes to contaminants, because I know we're talking about the solution right now, but one that we did not touch on that I want to kind of wrap our talk up with, and then we're going to open it up to questions, is the very important or popular topic of PFAS right now,
Yeah,
permanent chemicals as they're referred to. Let's talk a little bit about that.
sure. Thanks so much, Ralph. PFAS, perfluorocompounds, typically called PFOA or PFOS, but there are about 100 more. These are really, really, really dangerous chemicals that are measured in parts per trillion. Parts per trillion, folks. That's one drop in 100 million gallons of water. Let me put it in perspective. Let's say there's an analogy of 1 part per trillion is equivalent to 1 second, and a trillion seconds is 32,800 years later. It's really, really small.
Yeah.
These things are that dangerous. Can they be removed? Absolutely. By law, the water districts must remove them down to nowadays 0, but they haven't gotten there yet. They've had deferrals for the last 3 or 4 years. I have systems that'll take it out. But on a 1-inch water main, which is up to 24 gallons a minute, someone's going to pay $15,000 just for that one chemical to be removed. Nasty, nasty beasts.
Yeah, that's scary stuff. And thank you for sharing that with us. So, with that, we want to definitely get to everybody's questions with the last 9 or 10 minutes. It's been great, for the first 15 or 20, we've learned a lot in a very short time, covering, how to read our water, where to find the report on drinking water that is both reliable and differentiated from, what the powers that be say are acceptable. And we know that to be contentious at best. We talked about adsorption versus absorption and how to fix the problem with proper filtration. We talked about MCLG. We talked about resins, carbons, RO. We've covered a lot in a very short time. And this is a conversation, as you could tell, we can have for hours and hours and still not get to every detail of what goes on in our water. Who thought water was so complicated besides us? But we want to know from you guys. So RJ, you have a pulse on the chat, which I'm seeing like 26 different messages in at the moment, which is great. I got over 50 people on the call right now. So why don't we try our best to get and cherry pick ones that, may be most beneficial to the entire listener group if we can.
Yeah, so we have a lot of questions, and some are coming in the chat, and then I have a whole Q&A of questions. So
Do your best.
let's start one at a time so we could try to knock these out here. So one question is, this is interesting. What about distilled water? Don, if you want to take that.
You refer.
I talked about it before. Distilled water is the highest quality water in the universe, class 2 distilled, right? The problem is it has nothing else that's beneficial to our bodies in it. We call it dead water. It's not what we want to drink. And that's why you don't see all these distilled water bottles all over the place. You want to use it for your irons, and anything that, in your medical devices, but not as something that, that we want to ingest.
Got it. This is an interesting question. David by the way, we have people actually, which is really cool, from all different parts of the country on here.
Yeah, we got a lot of people here. Mm-hmm.
This is great. So Denville, New Jersey, near Parsippany and Mountain Lakes. I live on a freshwater lake that has algae mitigation done a couple of times during warm months. Algae, I think.
Algae, yeah.
Anything I should be aware of with this is really good. With the little ones swimming in it, everyone gets some water in their mouth at some point. I think that's really interesting. It's also interesting, Don, if you want to mention about like radium and some of those contaminants that you don't need to ingest that jump onto you explained, they jump onto your skin and leach into your body.
Yeah, so you always have to be careful, but you don't want to live in a bubble, right? Yeah. Swimming in a lake, I did it. I used to swim in the canal along the Raritan River back in Somerset back in the 60s. I wouldn't do that now. But there's really nothing you can do. I mean, you can't throw chemicals into a lake. I have customers in the top of Westchester in a town called Wackabuck that pull water for their home use out of the lake. And they just use these pool pumps. I can clean that water. Got to find out what's in that water. Obviously, there are microbiologicals, so I need to use UVs, ultraviolets, and there are chemicals. But playing in the water is one thing. Drinking it and living with it, bathing it all the time is something different.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And Carolyn asked a question about reverse osmosis. I believe Carolyn, and hi Carolyn, it's been a while. I hope you're doing great. Thank you for joining. If you have a follow-up question to that Don didn't address, just put it in the chat and let us know. Are FDA standards for bottled water better than tap water?
No. But I would drink any bottled water over any tap water in Long Island any day. There's not a town in Long Island that doesn't have at least one carcinogen in it. And I don't want carcinogens in my body. I don't want to get cancer. I won't drink water in a lot of the areas in Rockland. I won't drink water or even bathe in it in Long Island or in parts of New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey. So, there are problems. You got to look at what's in the water.
So we didn't really touch on bottled water too much. Obviously, like you said, you'd rather drink a bottle of water versus the tap water in Long Island. What would you rather drink, though? A purified source, let's say with RO, out of the tap or a bottle of water?
So the only bottled waters I would drink are ones that are marked purified. Purified bottled waters must go through reverse osmosis. Purified means that there are no living organisms in it, and reverse osmosis is the only thing that takes those things out.
Right.
Now, people might say, well, how about my tap water? There's nothing living in it. Yeah, no, they're still alive. They just can't reproduce. So all those microbiologicals, the bacteria and virus, they're still alive. And you're drinking them, they just can't reproduce, and they're not going to hurt you.
So the microplastics in bottles, though, how concerning is that for people? Because we hear about that all the time.
Well, microplastics is something that's, emerging. They're really nasty. They embed themselves into the platelets, into the red blood cells of our bodies, and they don't leave. There's no way that I can remove them except if you donate blood, which is maybe a great segue that we should all be donating blood.
Ah, that's definitely something I'm used to. That's great. So we'd rather have RO water, right, than bottled water at the end of the day, because the best bottled water is RO water anyway, just packaged in
Correct.
plastic. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Keep it going, RJ. We got a few other.
This is actually, I got a couple of questions on this. Where is the website, including reports for New York City,
Yeah.
that you can find these reports on? A lot
Right.
of
So
people
New York City water is managed by the Department of Environmental Protection. You can actually just Google New York City DEP water quality report. There's one report for the entirety of New York City, all 5 boroughs. Ralph, when I was coming to your house, I actually downloaded the latest one. It came out a few weeks ago. And you can read it. I will tell you, for people who live in New York City, the only thing that's truly dangerous is the lead. There are other chemicals like trihalmethanes and haloacetic acids that are above the MCLs, but they're not that harmful. But the lead is. So you have to figure out how to get rid of the lead, how to stop it from coming into your home, and how to stop it from leaching into the water once the water is already in your home.
Huh. For everybody, to Don's point, the link to New York City drinking water is in the chat. If you live in a particular town and you want to look at your drinking water report, I'm sure you can just Google it. That I actually, after Don came over, that's what I did, and I found my report. So there's a couple of more questions. There's 2 minutes left. Let me try to get to these. Are radioactive chemicals in all tap water, or just water in certain areas that have been highly contaminated in the past? And then a follow-up to that is, which state has the safest and which state has the worst historically water? I don't know, Donna, how you want to answer that one.
So the radioactive isotopes are all over the metropolitan area, but it might not be in the water because it depends on how deep the bedrock is compared to the aquifer. In Long Island, every single town in Nassau has it. Most of the areas in Suffolk have different radioactive isotopes. New Jersey has them, parts of Rockland have them, parts of Westchester have them. They are not in New York City water. New York City water is reservoir water. It's above ground, so they're not there. But New York City water also isn't kosher. It has other issues. So you also always have to take a look at what's in the water.
Great. This is great. And we have a minute left. There's one more question here. I guess you kind of addressed this one, Don. Have you tested, or do we know what contaminants are in bottled water, like Smart Water Poland Spring? We talked about the micro and nanoplastic issue. And by the way, we're ingesting as American a credit card worth of plastic and micro nanoplastics a week. Which is insane. And in Columbia University just came out with a study a few months ago that showed that there's actually up to 100 times more nano and microplastics in bottled water than they had originally thought, which is obviously alarming. So it is 1:30. First off, Don, Ralph, thank you guys for your time. This was, I mean, maybe I'm a little biased, but this was like really insightful. And I know it is because I'm getting text messages.
Yeah, me too. I'm getting blown up over here.
That this is really good.
There are some questions left in here that I noticed can be responded to directly. If Don, you have the time, you and I can go through them and try to reply to people, because you guys gave some great questions and a lot of people threw up their neighborhoods, where they're from. And I think it's great because, look, this affects us all. There's no question about it. Obviously, water is what we are made out of, so why not fill our bodies with the very best of it? Between Don's firm and mine, I think we do a fantastic job at trying to do that, but we want to be able to help you guys individually, and see to it that everybody has a healthier, better quality of life while we're here on this earth. So with that being said, I guess we can conclude. Don, any parting words?
Be safe, do your research, and from bottled waters, only drink things that say purified. Don't trust the word spring like Poland Springs or Mountain Springs. Spring just means it bubbles to the surface naturally. Doesn't mean it's clean.
Yep. And you got our email address there posted for anybody who wants to message us. We can connect you with Don, and we can connect you guys with, the right setup for your homes, for your workplace, and beyond. That's what we're here to do. So we thank you all for your time and attention today, and we hope that you all stay hydrated properly.